Every mystery Atlas files away has a way of finding its moment to be reopened. Tonight, it was the turn of a small folder from last episode, simply labeled Investigate Next. Atlas settled into the cockpit, dimmed the overhead lights, and opened it. Inside, one faint, oddly structured signal caught for a few seconds on an old, unused frequency. It didn't match anything from his Goldilocks survey. It didn't match Signal 001 from episode 11 either. It looked older, familiar, somehow, in a way Atlas couldn't quite place. He ran it through every database in his archive, searching for a match. One single result blinked back. A decades-old case file from a small blue-green planet called Earth. Atlas raised an eyebrow. Earth again? He opened the file. A date stamped the very top. August 15th, 1977. Long before Atlas. Long before Architect Boy. Long before any of this. And yet, somehow, the shape of the signal in that old file looked eerily close to the one in his own hand. Atlas leaned back in his seat, spyglass forgotten on the table. Whatever this was, it had happened before. On Earth. Decades ago. Tonight's search wasn't about finding a new home. It was about understanding an old echo. The story starts at a radio telescope with an unusual name, Big Ear. Built at Ohio State University, Big Ear spent years scanning the sky for distant galaxies. By 1973, its mission changed. It joined the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI for short. One of the volunteers on the project was an astronomer named Jerry Eman. His job, comb through mountains of paper printouts, line by line, looking for anything unusual. On the night of August 15th, 1977, at 11:16 p.m. local time, Big Ear recorded something it had never recorded before. Nobody was watching live. The signal came and went, quietly logged onto a stack of green and white printer paper. It sat there, unnoticed, for days. Atlas projected an image of a real vintage line printer, paper stacking endlessly. On August 19th, 4 days later, Eman finally reached that page while reviewing the backlog. And there it was, a string of characters unlike anything else on the page. 6EQUJ5. Eman grabbed a red pen without thinking and circled it. Next to it, he scrawled a single word that would end up naming the entire event. Wow! To understand why Eman wrote that, you have to understand how Big Ear measured signals. Every number from 1 to 9 meant the signal was that many times stronger than the background noise. Once a signal passed 9, the scale switched to letters. A for 10, B for 11, and so on. So U, the 10th letter after 9, meant something huge, over 30 times stronger than the background. Atlas circled the letter U on his own recreated printout, just like Eman once had. But strength alone wasn't the only reason this signal stood out. It was also narrowband, a very, very thin sliver of frequency. Natural cosmic noise tends to spread out, loud and messy across many frequencies. A signal squeezed into one tight little channel looks a lot more like something built on purpose. And this particular channel sat almost exactly on the hydrogen line, 1420.4 megahertz. Hydrogen is the most common element in the universe. Many scientists have proposed it as a kind of universal hello channel, if anyone out there wanted to be found. Some researchers even nicknamed this frequency neighborhood the water hole, a quiet, natural place in the radio spectrum where distant civilizations might think to meet. Everything about the signal's strength, shape, and frequency lined up with what an artificial signal might look like. Atlas set down his pen, staring at his own recreation of 6EQUJ5. It really did look like someone, or something, trying to say hello. But strength and frequency were only part of the mystery. The shape of the signal told its own story. The wow signal didn't blink on all at once, like a light switch. It rose for 36 seconds, peaked, then faded for another 36. That gentle rise and fall wasn't the signal changing, it was the sky changing, as Earth itself slowly turned. Big Ear couldn't steer side to side. It could only wait as the stars drifted past its fixed gaze. As the source entered the telescope's view, the signal grew stronger, then faded as it drifted back out. Exactly 72 seconds, the width of Big Ear's patch of sky. That timing ruled out something as simple as a nearby radio tower or a passing plane. Earthly interference doesn't politely rise and fall with the rotation of the planet. Whatever caused this signal, Atlas realized, had to be coming from somewhere out past the sky itself. Researchers traced the signal's origin toward the constellation Sagittarius, not far from a dense cluster of ancient stars called M55. Atlas projected the tiny patch of sky onto his cockpit window, a small X marking the spot. No planet, no known star system close enough to easily explain it. Just a direction, a patch of empty-looking sky that once said something, briefly, in 1977. Atlas stared at the little X for a long moment. Somewhere out there, decades ago, something had happened, and nobody, to this day, has ever fully explained what. In the years that followed, scientists pointed telescopes back at that same patch of sky, again and again. 1987, 1995, 2012, 2017, on the 40th anniversary of the original signal. Every single time, nothing, not a flicker, not an echo. The wow signal has never repeated, not once, in nearly 50 years of looking. For a long time, that made it one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in the search for alien life. But mysteries, Atlas was learning, don't always stay unsolved forever. In more recent research, scientists proposed a new, more down-to-earth explanation. Clouds of neutral hydrogen gas drifting through space can sometimes flare briefly brighter through a natural process researchers call superradiance. Under just the right, rare alignment, a flaring cloud could mimic the strength and shape Big Ear recorded that night. It's not a certainty, but it's currently one of the leading natural explanations. Atlas nodded slowly, a little relieved and a little disappointed all at once. So maybe, just maybe, the most famous alien signal in history was really just space breathing, briefly, a little louder than usual. Or maybe not. The truth is, we still don't know for certain. That uncertainty, Atlas realized, was oddly comforting. It meant the search was never really over, just quiet, waiting for its next Eamon to come along. Atlas set the historical file aside and pulled his own signal back onto the screen. Side by side, he compared the two, the old printout and his own faint recording from last episode. The rise, the peak, the fall, the same gentle, rounded shape. Narrowband, structured, nothing like ordinary static. It wasn't an exact match, but it echoed the same pattern Eamon had circled in red, decades earlier. Atlas felt his fur prickle slightly along his spine. Coincidence, he told himself. Patterns like this probably show up more than anyone realizes. Still, he ran a full side-by-side comparison, just to be thorough. The computer chimed, an 82% structural match in signal shape. 82% was not nothing. Atlas printed both patterns out, laying them on the table exactly like an old-fashioned line printer page. He circled his own signal with a small violet pen, an echo of Eamon's red one. Next to it, almost without thinking, he wrote a single word. Huh. Not quite a wow, not yet, but close. Curiosity got the better of him. Atlas pulled up the full metadata on his own mystery signal. Source frequency, signal strength, and, tucked at the very bottom, a precise timestamp. Atlas read it once, then again, slower. His paws went still on the console. The timestamp lined up, almost to the second, with the exact moment he'd switched on his neural antenna back in episode 11. Not close, not roughly around the same time, the same moment. Atlas felt the workshop air go cold, even though he was light years from that workshop now. Every rational explanation lined up in his head: coincidence, clock drift, a filing error. But one far stranger possibility sat quietly underneath all of them, refusing to leave. What if, the instant Atlas had first reached out, something had reached back? Not a hello, not a threat, just a reply, small and strange enough to almost miss. Atlas thought of the dark forest file from episode 12, of the honeycomb grid's amber blip, of 6 seconds, then silence. And now, a second echo, decades-old shape, present-day timestamp, lining up almost too perfectly to ignore. He didn't broadcast, he didn't panic, He simply saved everything, twice, and marked the file in bold violet letters. Signal 002 correlates with episode 11, priority, urgent. Atlas sat back, staring at two signals separated by decades and light years, yet somehow rhyming with each other. Real science had taught him the wow signal was probably, likely, most probably just hydrogen breathing in the dark. But probably had never been quite good enough for Atlas, not since episode 11. He added one more line to his growing list of open questions, right under the coordinates of candidate green 1. The list was getting longer. The nights, a little more sleepless. Still, Atlas found something steady in that growing list. Proof that the search itself was working. Every subscriber tuning in tonight becomes part of that same search, patiently comparing patterns, patiently waiting for the next wow. Atlas rolled up both printouts, one from 1977, one from his own archive, and filed them together for the first time. Somewhere in that thin, hydrogen-lined channel between civilizations, an answer might already be waiting. Or it might just be an old cloud of gas, quietly glowing the same way it has for millions of years. Either way, Atlas decided, it was worth listening for. Thank you for exploring quietly with me tonight, architects. Next time, we go back to the math that started all of this, the equation itself. See you next transmission.